Hello everyone, welcome back to another NumPy video. In this video, we're going to be talking about logical operations in Python versus logical operations in NumPy. So hopefully just the general ideas of logic in computer programming are fresh in your mind. If not, feel free to go back and watch some of our previous videos about that. Otherwise, the point of this video is going to be how do I deal with logic when I'm using base Python? So by this I mean Python without NumPy. Versus how do I use logic in NumPy or perhaps pandas, which if you're moving on to Math 10 is something you will see in that class. So as a general rule, if I'm using base Python, I want to write out the full words. So I want to write out and, or, and not. Versus if I'm using NumPy or pandas, I want to use the symbols ampersand, so and, this bar, which is sometimes called pipe, and tilde. And this is and, or, and not. So here, copy pasted from a previous video, I have some code that we worked on there. So I already have NumPy imported into this session. So otherwise I have my random number generator. I'm setting a variable n to be 20, and I'm creating a length 10 NumPy array of randomly generated integers between -50 and 50 inclusive. And I've also cast this array to a list. So the motivating question for this video is I want to find all entries in ARR and mylist that are strictly between -10 and 10. So this is going to allow us to use and kind of when we do this question with mylist, it gives us an example of where we have to use the base Python commands versus the NumPy commands. So let's get started. I'm going to start with the mylist version. So there's a couple different ways that we could do it. I'm going to do it with list comprehension. So I want to take x for x in mylist, and such that what happens? Well, I want x to be less than or equal to 10, or I guess I said strict here. So I want it to be strictly less than 10, but also strictly greater than -10. So I'm going to say if. So first thing I want is x strictly greater than -10 and x strictly less than 10. So if I run this here, I see there's just one element that does that. So maybe here, let's take a look at mylist. So we can see here, 24, 28, So 3 really is the only one here that lives in between -10 and 10. So that was one way we could do it. Notice I wrote out the full word and. Another way we could do it, so there's no reason to do it this way other than it's a good practice with just negating statements if you've taken Math 13 or just seeing another way to do the same problem. So I can say x for x in mylist. Now I could say, well, what's the opposite of what I want? Well, this would be x less than or equal to 10 or x greater than or equal to 10. So I could have x less than or equal to -10 or x greater than or equal to 10. Oops. And remember, I want not this, so I wrap the whole thing in parentheses and I say not. Oops, and let's see. Oh, do you see what I did wrong here? So I'm using base NumPy, so I should say not. And it's still not happy, so what's going on? Oh, does anyone see what I'm missing? If. And here we get just 3. Maybe one example I want to show you, let's say I did this with the tilde. Notice it still works. So the issue previously was that I was missing if. We really should use not here. So you'll see in base Python, if you end up using the symbol instead of writing out the full word, sometimes it will work. So what I recommend is even if it does work with the symbols, just try to write out the full word just because that's the better way to do it in base Python. So what I like about these two examples is notice we got the same thing, but here we used just and versus here we got to use not and also the word or. So this is kind of how we could do it with mylist. So this is what I consider base Python because notice we're just using a list and nothing from NumPy. Now let's talk a little bit about how we could do it in NumPy. So remember, if I do ARR greater than 10, for instance, this will give me a list of all, or not a list, it'll give me a NumPy array where it returns true if the element in the array in that position is greater than 10. So it's saying the first element of the array is greater than 10 if we look. So here's my list, it'll be the same as ARR, but just for good measure, let's have ARR. So notice 24, 28, 24, these are all greater than 10, so it should be true, true, true. And we can see here, true, true, true. So notice I want to have ARR greater than -10 and smaller than 10. So what I could do is I could say, let's take ARR greater than -10 and ARR strictly smaller than 10. So remember, this is going to return, oops, and also I've made the mistake here as well. So I'm really actually glad I made this mistake, because notice here, while we didn't get an error when we used a symbol in base Python, if I write out the word here using NumPy, it is going to give me an error. So let's do and. So notice there should be just one true in here, and there it is. And then how do I get that entry? Well, I can do indexing, ARR of this value, and here we get 3. So exactly what we expect from our earlier computations. Again, just to show you that there's multiple different ways of doing this, let's also do it the same way that we did for the list comprehension. So we have not and then this situation here. So another way we could do it is I could have ARR of, and now I want not, and we have ARR less than or equal to -10, or ARR greater than or equal to 10. And we can see here, we get exactly the same, just 3. And for good measure, well here, okay, so we've already seen using and symbol, using tilde, using the bar. One other way, and again, this is good practice if you've taken Math 13 for negating. What if I pass the negation inside? So what if I say ARR of, so let's say not ARR less than or equal to -10. The negation of or is and. So, and not ARR greater than or equal to 10. We can see here exactly the same. We just get 3. If we were to pass this not inside, we'd get ARR strictly greater than -10, which is what we have here. And if we pass this not here, we get ARR strictly less than 10. So again, a little bit of a shorter video, just wanted to introduce some of the main differences when we're using logical operations in just plain NumPy or plain Python versus when we're using it in NumPy. I think this is a good place to end the video, and I'll see you in the next one.